Next speaker, may I request Ms. Samantha Jayasuriya, Ambassador of Sri Lanka to Thailand.
Thank you, Ambassador Mulay. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much to Mr. Shabri Nair for extending this invitation for us on behalf of the organizers. Particularly a great pleasure to see some of the colleagues whom we have had engagement on migration as well as human rights. And thanks to Migrant Forum Asia, CCRM, GRFTV for this very timely discussion, which is very close to our day-to-day work. And with regard to the Sri Lankan government's efforts led by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, we had at the very initial stages deployed a COVID task force as in many countries, and with the support of the security forces to manage the quarantine procedures, as well as the excellent medical teams working on treatment, preventive measures and awareness raising, we have recorded a good progress, especially with very high recovery rates, something about 80%, and then also very low severity rates, that's about 0.55%. And having said that, as explained very eloquently by the previous speakers, as the disease started spreading across various parts of the world, the diplomatic missions were among the frontline forces. And it was similar for all the 67 missions and posts for Sri Lanka, particularly including the 16 missions which were having dedicated officers to look into the welfare of the migrant workers. And for us, we had like three main functions. One on gathering information and data to oversee Sri Lankans and identifying their requirements and timely reportage to Colombo. Also involving supporting or giving services to the needy migrants and arranging repatriations. So in terms of gathering data, we had in the Foreign Ministry a dedicated focal point and also a web portal called Contact Sri Lanka, which as of date has about over 86,000 entries. And in parallel, we all in missions started doing the data gathering, which was very important for the government to assess ground situations and identify priorities based on relative vulnerabilities. And as of date, Sri Lanka has about 1.5 million migrant workers, mainly most of them are in the GCC countries. And for us, we have been talking about, we have the importance of whole of government approach. For this COVID crisis, we had our foreign ministry and foreign minister and the minister of foreign employment held by one minister. So it enabled us to have in practice a very pragmatic approach for whole of government. And I think we, in the midst of the COVID crisis, need to continue this coordination with various stakeholders. And also when it comes to supporting the overseas Sri Lankans, I would say it is with a deep sense of respect and salutation to all colleagues serving in missions that they acted beyond a mere duty. And there was abundance in commitment, responsibility, and humane gestures. So they were involved in not only providing the day-to-day needs, dry rations as said by the previous speakers, but also on securing jobs and visa extensions, amnesties, even providing alternative shelters where possible. And in our case, we were also involved in making emergency medical evacuations across land borders. Naturally, as Mr. Manish said, most of our missions were working within limited capacities, limited resources. So this was an unprecedented crisis where the capacities had to be rise above to face the unprecedented challenge. And then on repatriation, as of now, we have in Sri Lanka done about 10,000, over 10,000 OSLs returned to Sri Lanka, but there are many more registered, particularly the migrant workers. But intermittently, the government had to make assessments on the numbers that can be allowed into the country, which was more important in terms of a small developing country where we didn't want to overwhelm the health resources so that this crisis doesn't go outbound. And then the overseas missions, when this intermittent stopping of repatriation was done, there was enormous amount of work that we had to do in engaging the people who have wanting to be repatriated. And at the same time, there were a very difficult prioritization to be done, particularly about the students and then stranded Sri Lankans who have come to the countries on short-term visas, and the migrant workers, those in irregular situation, as well as those who have lost jobs, and also people who had real humanitarian grounds to go back. And then it was our responsibility to make very objective and fact-based recommendations regularly to enable the government to make informed decisions so that priorities can be set. And also, we also were involved in coordinating with faraway destinations where we had Sri Lankans in small numbers. So most of the time we were using technology to coordinate remotely to look into their welfare. So it was all in all not only providing material support, but to give them moral support and confidence to engage with them as regularly as possible, that to give them a sense that the embassy is there to listen to them and to do whatever possible. And then since we were talking about the role of diplomatic missions during the crisis as well as beyond the crisis, I would like to touch base on some of my thoughts about this aspect. Beyond the crisis, how we need to be working as missions. I believe in the
Ambassador, sorry for intervention. You have about 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be very, very quick on this. So there'll be more challenges in terms of job cutting as well as using more technology. So we need to help our migrants, especially the semi-skilled migrants as well as low-skilled migrants to enhance their skills. And also we have to gear up for more specific high-quality labor forces. It would be small in numbers, but more stronger and sustainable demand to be created. And then just briefly to touch upon about the regional mechanisms, which we would have expected more to be done through such regional forums. But for example, we in Colombo process wanted to work on migrant health, but we couldn't achieve that much on those subjects. And particularly, we wanted the Colombo process to be a coordinating point between capitals and Geneva, as well as those destination countries. So this is something which we have to look in the new normal, where we need to have more engagement with all the stakeholders through the regional processes. And as we begin the decade of action for SDGs, these all have to come into play. And I will stop there. But I do agree with that better engagement, better transparency, and to see new out-of-the-box innovative mechanisms to find new employments for our migrant workers would be pivotal role that will be vested on most of our missions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think you again made some very pertinent points not covered by the earlier speakers. And I'm glad that you highlighted the role of the missions. These are not very easy times for the missions to handle, because they have not seen something like this in the past. And in the normal circumstances, they face problems. This is a kind of a very, very crisis situation. And yes, some of them do very well. Some of them have difficulties too.